Brilliance Audio presents Passing Fancies by Marlowe Benn, performed by Sarah Zimmerman. Paul Duveen was the whitest man Julia had ever seen. Stepping into his apartment on West 55th Street, she had no problem spotting him in the crowd. Ivory hair crested high above his doughy face, and eager teeth burst forth as he regaled an audience with some amusing or perhaps scabrous tale. Presiding over one of his infamous Thursday evening salons, he wore an alabaster dressing gown and bleached pigskin house slippers. Apart from deep-set brown eyes, everything about him was incandescent. The man glowed. Unseen hands bore away her Egyptian shawl as Julia lifted a martini from a passing tray. She raised it to salute her host across the room. Duveen, Pablo to his friends, returned the greeting through a fog of smoke. Perhaps he remembered last week's invitation. Perhaps not. His slurred shout made no distinction. Julia sipped her drink, delicious, real gin, and gazed about the apartment. There was something daring and defiant going on here, a snub to all the parties in Manhattan and around the world lumbering along in the old dead ways of before the war. All things boring and dreary had been swept away. Even the walls were the color of tangerines. From across the room, a bronze bust scowled beneath the coils of an abandoned silver boa. Above it hung an immense angular painting depicting shards of at least one, possibly two, crimson nudes. Tipsy jazz hiccuped from a grand piano in the corner. The musician curled like a smitten lover over the keys, paying no attention whatsoever to the two women swaying to a private beat behind him. Everywhere, conversations bubbled and swirled. Most remarkably, the party was mixed. A dozen or more Negroes mingled amid the throng of whites. The rumors were true, then. Julia had never been to a party where Negroes did more than disperse canapes and cocktails or sweeten the din with half-heard melodies. She could almost feel the rumble of polite society creaking asunder, of modernity muscling apart the old walls built to separate those fiercely guarded realms of us and them. Here and there, at the bolder edges of Manhattan society, those walls were cracking. People of all shades were squaring their shoulders and dancing through the breach. Not many, and not always safely, but each time another brick wobbled. The other guests looked pleased and even proud to be there. Julia felt a twinge of pride herself. She'd found her way to the still rough edge of the growing century. After 5 years of living abroad in London, this was why she had returned to New York. This was where she wanted to belong. Here she hoped to make her mark. She threaded her way through a quartet of noisy men, expounding earnestly on Freud toward a massive glass-fronted bookcase. Even from across the room she'd recognized a gilded red spine that beckoned for a closer look. Like most modern young people, Julia indulged a number of minor vices. Hers included an impertinent curiosity about other people's books. It might not be judged as indelicate as exploring others' closets and cabinets, but it ought to be, because it was just as revealing. She was right. It was a copy of the recent Bodley Head Quarto edition of Oscar Wilde's Salome. That Duveen owned this edition, which reproduced Aubrey Beardsley's famously decadent illustrations, told her more about him than hours of polite conversation. It confirmed Duveen was one of those men who ventured well beyond the borders of social respectability. Julia knew the type, even shared its impulses from time to time, and also knew that what most repelled could most intrigue.